This story takes place in the Comox Valley. This is my story, her story, his story, their story. This is our story. Today I will be interviewing citizens of the Valley. I'm going to ask them questions about how the housing crisis has affected them and their families. I asked everyone online, what are some major issues in the community that you'd like to see discussed? I got a lot of feedback, most of them relating to homelessness. I wanted to get to the root of the problem, the housing crisis. Having a home is a human right, not a privilege.
I'm Andrina Schulte, and I'm a realtor with Royal LePage in the Comox Valley, Vancouver Island.
My name is Andrea Capelli, and I'm the coordinator for the Comox Valley Coalition to End Homelessness.
My name is Dash Helen, and I go by they, them pronoun.
My name is Tony Dunn, and I live in Courtenay, BC.
Yeah, my name's Liz. I lived in the Comox Valley for 32 years.
I like a lot of things about my job. I think the thing I love the most is being able to work in community and work with, we have 34 different member agencies who are part of the coalition, so getting to know all of the good work that they do, and then getting to know, the folks who are on the streets and folks who are experiencing challenges. They're awesome people, so I think, the people is my favorite part of the job. The hardest part of my job is the constant struggle to advocate for the needs for folks in our community. It's never ending, it's relentless, and it can frankly be quite exhausting, but it's well worth the struggle.
I really do like being a realtor. I've been a realtor for 15 years, and I like that every day is dynamic, it's different. I'm a bit indoors, I'm a bit outdoors, I'm meeting with people, I'm looking at homes. I really like that. I like meeting the people. So, my first house was about 17 or 18 years ago. It was here in the Comox Valley. I was living in Red Deer at the time, and my boyfriend at the time was an Air Force pilot, so we bought this house. It was $162,000, and we had a renter that was helping pay the mortgage. So, looking back, prices were so different back then. I can't even remember what our monthly expense were. I think our tenant paid $800 towards our mortgage, so that might have been one of the mortgage payments because it was a twice a month payment. So totally different.
We pay about $1,800 a month, which includes our property tax and maintenance. A lot, maybe anywhere between $5,000 and $15,000 depending on the year and the problems. I live in a house with my partner who works and 2 other adults. So we have 4 paying adults that pay into the mortgage. So that is really helpful, especially in these times,
I have to say that I'm incredibly lucky, and I'm often afraid that I'm going to lose my luck with the suite that I'm renting. My landlords are amazing people, but if they ever choose to sell, I will be thrust into the challenge that we're seeing right now. So currently I'm paying about $925 a month, which is, in today's market, it's unreal. It's a really great bargain for where I am, and I will never let it go.
We paid $1,050 for both small apartments. The second one was a little bit bigger, but for the most part, they were the same size. I know it wasn't that big. And now I live with my parents.
Usually I'll ask, do you rent or own? But I'm going to ask, straight up, do you have a home address?
Not currently. I am currently looking for a place. I'm living at the warming center.
When you did have a place, how much were you paying for rent?
$2,150.
I feel very lucky to have gotten into the market pretty much in the nick of time, and I actually wouldn't have been able to buy a house because I'm a server. I was a server for a lot of years, so yeah, that income on paper doesn't look like very much. It's minimum wage. So I was lucky enough that I had a friend that wanted to buy a house with me, and she had a kind of a big girl job. Worked at the hospital, so we were able to combine our income and buy a house right before we bought our house about 10 years ago. So I feel like I haven't been impacted, but I feel like I would have been impacted had I not had that partnership. It just wouldn't have been accessible to me at all. Even though I work full time, even though, yeah, all of the things, so.
Things have been great as a realtor. We're still busy. The fact that pricing has gone up hasn't changed how we work. It's maybe more challenging for buyers. Right now, it's one of the busiest times we've ever experienced in this industry, and it's stressful. It's stressful for buyers. When there's multiple offers, people competing, 10 of them, 15 of them for one house, there's a lot of disappointed people.
I have many friends who are in partnerships, who both work full-time, who are just wouldn't be able to access buying a home because of just how difficult it is to not only get a mortgage, but to just how much you have to put down now. I snuck in when it was like 5 or 10% down still, so that was like $20,000 instead of the giant number that people have to come up with now. And lots of friends who are, in partnerships that have split or would like to split, but can't imagine splitting up the family and having 2 different homes that they have to pay for. So that's like how I see it in my social group, is more not being able to change or move or shift out of a current situation, even if they own a home, because of the way that the market is.
It affected me in a way that each time I would have to move out of a place, I would have to move into my parents because I couldn't find a place that fast.
Year over year, we're seeing rents exponentially rise. So when I first moved here, a 1-bedroom apartment would maybe be like $825, $900 if you were lucky, and now we're seeing $1,700, $1,800. It's absolutely out of control. Again, that's why I feel really lucky to be where I am and with the landlords that I currently have, but that's not the reality for the majority of people. And we're also losing rental stock in our community, so we're seeing homes being sold where folks maybe were renting because the housing market is so hot right now, and also things like purchases of apartment buildings that have generally maintained a fairly low rental rate that are now going to, once the pandemic is over and evictions happen or people move out, those rents will go up as well.
It's made me homeless. Rent about 10 years ago, I think I paid just over $500.
When we first moved into our first apartment, the guy that was living there, he was paying $750, and when we moved in, it was $1050.
When you were looking for housing, how long did it take you to find something?
We started looking in November, and we got it in August. So 9 months, because it took that long. We weren't in a stable home. We just had to basically just wait it out for us to get a place.
The last time I did a subsidy, it took me 3 months to get on it, or 3 or 4 months.
And that was how long ago?
3 years ago? 3.5 years ago, just about then.
I did move in with one of my friends who was living in Parks Place, which is affordable housing in Comox. But now I know that there's a lot of people that are trying to apply for that place, and the waiting list is 3 years.
We have a wait list for BC Housing operated subsidized housing in our community that I think is almost 200 people deep right now. And a lot of people don't even bother to sign up because they know that the wait list is so long. Yeah. And I would say it would be a miracle if we were able to get anyone into really any type of housing in 30 to 60 days. I just had a meeting this morning with frontline outreach workers who were telling me they saw a posting for a 2-bedroom apartment that was reasonable, was going to be happening June 1st, and they went to apply for that housing and there was already 50 applications and a bidding war happen, and that's not subsidized housing, that's regular. So there's just a huge wait list and time constraint on everyone. The waiting time for subsidized housing makes people feel really defeated, I would say. It's defeating. I don't know really how other way to articulate that. And it's not fair and it's not right, and we need our governments to do better and to work with groups like the Coalition to listen to our advocacy and to listen to the fact that we need another 100 units of supportive housing. We need housing for middle income earners. We need the whole spectrum. So it's defeating, definitely, and exhausting.
I think actually the biggest impact is that people that are investors and own maybe a condo that they're renting out, now they've seen big appreciation in that condo and they're selling it. And so tenants are being given notice and they're needing to move out. And their rates, if they were paying rates set 5 years ago, they were quite low rates, affordable rates. And now in today's market, they're paying a premium for rent. And so it's a big difference and not pleasant, I wouldn't think.
So because of our capitalistic society and the way that housing is treated as a commodity, I think it's not really fair to say people are doing it on purpose. I think it's just the way that our system is set up, that the cost of living has gone up for everyone, and I think when there's an opportunity to make some additional income from renting, people should be allowed to do that. But it's just, it's like a no-win situation when we treat housing as a commodity and not just simply a human right that everyone should have access to. So the system sets people up to work against one another and not with one another. And I don't want to place blame on landlords because we need landlords. But not all of them are like that. My landlords are amazing people who have kept my rents at a very reasonable rate. And I can't blame others who need to increase. And then of course there are some who are definitely taking advantage of the system. And again, it's just because of the way our system is set up.
Yep. What people are doing is they're pricing it whatever they want because they can. And people are paying it because there's nothing else they can do.
If you have a pet, you have to pay the pet deposit. Some landlords want the last month. So you're looking at about probably $3,000 to move.
I mean, I don't know who's benefiting from the market. Those people that are already in it. I think it's just it's a tight loop right now. I don't really feel like there's a lot of access to getting in the market unless you're buying something like a little condo or something smaller. But even then, those prices feel pretty high for not having access to a yard, for instance, or having to be under the umbrella of like strata rules
There are a lot of people that own more than one place, and it's surprising. I think if people talk to family, friends, it's fairly common to have a main house that you live in and either a rental property or a vacation property. It's surprising. It's pretty common.
we're constantly advocating for non-market affordable housing. So low-income rents, rent geared to income. I mean, really people should be paying no more than 30% of their income on rent. And in our community, it's upwards to like 56.4% of people are spending more than 30% on their rent. So yeah, we need to advocate for the full spectrum of non-market housing, all the way from supportive housing for people who are really vulnerable and who need 24/7 staff on site to help them meet their goals, all the way to like multi-bedroom housing for families that's geared to their income. We really need it all, and it has to be in the subsidized or non-market rent. So yeah, having some support from government into those rents.
Yes, I do think that I absolutely believe that housing is a human right. I'm really concerned about the growing unhoused population in the Comox Valley and all over the world, and the housing market right now is just contributing to that. I know like a lot of people that are on the verge of like either being evicted from their home because people want to sell and make a profit, or you know, people who have lost their jobs during this time, you know, who are really just trying to make ends meet, and their rent is already super high. And you know, the people who own that house are paying a mortgage, so they have to, you know, kind of meet what that mortgage payment is. I understand the like why people ask what they ask, and there has to be a solution that allows for people to be able to sleep under a roof.
Like, you know, working 40 hours a week, but only getting minimum wage, we can't afford that.
We've got to build more affordable homes. I mean, the last low-income housing they built was the minimum requirement is you had to make $2,000. That's, to me, that's not low income.
I think that we should have like a basic income that everybody gets and just kind of go from there.
With how it's going right now, I do. But if they were able to fix it, I think even $22.50 an hour is not a bad price if they could fix the housing crisis.
I think that minimum wage for sure needs to be increased. I actually really love the idea of universal basic income. With the pandemic and CERB coming about, when that first happened, where folks were getting $2,000 a month, we actually saw a lot of improvements in people who we work with, because they were just able to afford the things that they needed, the basic things that they needed. And studies show that, you know, when you give people money, they're not, you know, the majority of people aren't spending it on frivolous things. They're, you know, buying groceries, they're paying their utilities, they're putting their kids into dance lessons or paying for, you know, their car insurance. They're doing the things that they need to, you know, build a healthy life, and then that gives them the space to work on other goals. So I mean, minimum wage, yes, but I really think that what we need to push nationally is for a universal basic income.
There's just so many different layers that could be added on to trying to find a house. Definitely if you have kids or you have, you know, you're a single parent, like, that's so hard.
I've absolutely seen folks being discriminated against in trying to find housing. It happens, unfortunately, really frequently. A few examples that I hear of a lot are families, so say a single mom or dad and their kids trying to find rental housing. Landlords will often, you know, will choose someone else over them because they feel like children might damage the walls or, you know, create more wear and tear. Another unfortunate incident of discrimination we hear about often is folks who are Indigenous or people of color also having challenges being rented to, and often youth as well. So, you know, youth who are going to college or, doing other schooling, who are trying to get into the rental market for the first time, whether alone or with roommates, can be really challenging for them too. So yeah, it does unfortunately happen quite a bit, and we hear about it often from our frontline housing outreach workers.
Oh yeah, I've been turned away from about 50 places just because I'm on PWD, Persons with Disabilities.
Do I think the real estate market is a scam? I think, again, I'm gonna tie it back to capitalism. I think capitalism is a scam, really. I think it's a game where the rich can get richer and more people are struggling. And that, to me, is really the big scam. Again, I'll just keep harping on it. Housing should be a human right. It should not be a commodity that people invest in to, get their profits over, people's lives. And it really has huge repercussions on our society. When people are unable to afford their housing, they are so vulnerable, to health issues, to mental health challenges, to, finding employment. It just becomes a snowball effect on our society. And really, it costs less to house somebody than it does to provide them subsidized housing. And on top of that, for every unit of affordable housing that we build in Canada, we lose 15. So again, this is like the great scam. We're just playing catch up, and we're creating more financial issues and more suffering and more pain. And some people are winning, but I'd say the majority of people are losing.
For young people that have got a university degree or college degree, if they've taken on large student loans, $20,000, $30,000 and more, that also is a barrier to home ownership because you've got this debt repayment.
No, I do not think the housing market is just. I think it's really inaccessible to most people that I know who are really in my mind kind of doing well, both have jobs and have some money put aside. It's still really competitive, and people coming from Vancouver have such an advantage selling a home in Vancouver, having that money in the account and being able to buy things without even looking at them. And here, people who live in this community who are already grounded and stable in this community have zero access, and it's it's sad. I think it's driving a lot of people elsewhere. I don't know where that is, or just out of this town, because even the rental market is unjust and inaccessible. So
the system needs to be changed.
One thing that we see is, some folks struggle with maintaining housing, and that's usually due to, mental health or substance use issues, and they need someone to support them in the housing that they have and to, just help them maintain. So sometimes we see a cycle where an individual will be housed, but they won't be housed with supports. So they might be able to keep that housing on their own for a few months, and then something happens and they get evicted and they have to go through that system again. So that's why, for supportive and transitional housing, we really need to have wraparound supports and staff to be there to help people meet their goals and to keep them housed successfully.
Yeah, I just hope that our community can come up with some long-term solutions for people who aren't able to get into the market, who can't afford the current rent, whether that's a subsidy that comes from the government or just creative solutions. I know there's tons of people that would be really happy to live in a tiny home in a little community, and that would be and so as someone who lives in a community, a community of 5 people, that for me, that's been such a beautiful way to live. And when I took that step, people thought, that my parents were like, what? You're gonna buy a house with a friend and include all these other people? But it's especially during COVID, it's softened the blow of it, and I felt really supported. And when I see kind of these nuclear families and these big homes, I just think that's an old model that we need to start to look into. So even looser rules around building carriage homes in the property or having multiple suites or whatever works for people, that would be something that's a starting point, that's something that's already here that we can work with. You just have to not be as tight around how we live or have such a rigid model about how we live.
Oh boy, in 5 years, I think this will be a somewhat different community because there will be more people here. I'm hoping that all of the restaurants and shops are able to stay in business through COVID, and I think there's a little bit of expansion going on in Courtenay and Comox in the Union Bay area. So I think we've got this awesome airport that allows people from Alberta, Ontario, Vancouver to reach here so easily, and I think more will be coming.
Maybe you've caught me on a week where I'm feeling a little defeated as well. In what I'm seeing right now is home prices skyrocketing, rents skyrocketing, lack of rental stock, rental stock decreasing. And my fear is that in 5 years we'll be in a much worse situation than we are now. And I've been at this for 5 years, and I feel like we've been a bit of a canary in the coal mine. We were saying the same things 5 years ago when housing prices were, in the $285,000, $300,000 range, and here we are now, where the benchmark price is about $675,000. So I'm very fearful that in 5 years from now, it's going to be much, much worse, and we're going to see what it's like, in communities on the mainland or South Island. On the flip side, I do think that there's a lot of really amazing advocacy and good things happening, and partnerships with local government and provincial government and federal government to build more subsidized units. But again, it's that deficit where you build one, you lose 15. So, my hope is that things will settle down, and maybe after the pandemic ends, things will settle a bit, but I really don't see that happening, and I think we need to make a lot of noise about what's going on in the Comox Valley, and that we just need a lot more funding and attention and support to get people housed appropriately through that rent geared to income or subsidized housing program.
For me, from what I can see, they're trying people that they consider unworthy or unsavory or low income. They're trying to push us out, push people that don't meet their expectations. What I hope to see is that they're able to fix it so that young families, single mothers, senior citizens, war veterans, everyone can have a place to live.
There's housing out there, there's so many housing opportunities out there that we could put people in, but they choose not to because they decide to just make a profit out of it.
Yeah, I understand that people's livelihoods, I understand why people want to buy second homes. I understand why people are making investments, and I think that's their right and they can do that. But I feel like that energy is kind of like moving in and very self-focused, and as a community we need to start looking out and including a bigger vision on how to house more people rather than just taking care of ourselves.
Okay,
it's like I'm only funny when I'm spontaneous.
That's a whole different other side that we can have a conversation about, yeah.
So yeah, the struggle's real.
Yeah, the struggle's real.
Okay, I have 2 more questions. Do you think you will still be living in the same place you do now in 5 years from now?
For my circumstance,
got that